We've all heard chilling stories that make us wonder, are they just fiction, or is there something more? In this video, I'll share real events that happened to people and remain unexplained to this day. Get ready, because this is going to be truly terrifying. The same face. I stopped seeing him after 6 months, moved to Portland, found a new therapist, Dr. Sarah Williams. The first session went fine until I noticed something about she held her pen, pinched between her thumb and forefinger, just like Dr. Chen. By the third session, her face had started to change. Subtle at first, the angle of her jaw had started to change. Subtle at first, the angle of her jaw, the spacing of her eyes. By the end of the hour, I was sitting across from Dr. Chen again. Same empty smile, same carefully measured words. I first met Dr. Marcus Chen on a rainy Tuesday in October. Like most people who seek therapy, I was going through a rough patch, nothing too serious, just the usual mix of work stress and relationship issues that pile up until you can't see over them anymore. His office sat on the third floor of a brick medical building in downtown Seattle, with large windows that looked out over the constant drizzle and gray skies. Looking back, I should have noticed something was off about him from the start. The way his smile never quite reached his eyes, the slight delay before he responded to his own name. But when you're desperate for help, you tend to ignore the warning signs. The first few sessions went well enough. Dr. Chen had this way of making everything seem fixable, manageable. He'd lean forward in his leather chair, nod at just the right moments, and offer what seemed like perfectly reasonable advice. Quit my job, cut ties with my family, move to a new city, start fresh. It wasn't until Lad followed through on most of his suggestions that I realized how isolated I'd become. My savings were dwindling, my friends had stopped calling, and my family's numbers were all blocked on his recommendation, of course. That's when his advice started getting stranger. He suggested I change my name, delete my social media presence, even alter my appearance. Sometimes we need to become someone else to find ourselves, he'd say, that not quite right smile playing across his face. I ran. Changed cities again. Phoenix, Denver, Chicago. Each time, I'd find a new therapist, carefully vetted, excellent reviews. Male, female, young, old, it didn't matter. By the third session, they'd all become him. Their faces would shift like melting wax, their voices modulating mid-sentence until they matched his precise, measured tone. I haven't slept properly in 3 years. I've stopped seeing therapists altogether, but sometimes I'll catch glimpses of him. In the rearview mirror of my car, he's the passenger in the back seat, gone when I turn around. In store windows, his reflection walks beside mine. In crowds, his face appears on strangers who turn to watch me pass. Last week, I finally broke down and called my mother the first time in 2 years. When she answered, her voice was different, measured, precise. It's time to come back to therapy, she said, melting to Dr. Chen's voice. You can't run forever. I'm writing this from a motel room in some small town in Montana. The clerk at the front desk looked normal when I checked in an hour ago, but I can hear footsteps outside my door now. Someone's key is scratching at the lock. I know who it is. I know what face I'll see when that door opens. I'm writing this so someone anyone knows, be aware of Dr. Chen. After all, every face is his face now. The death app. 12 years ago, I bludgeoned my sister with a vase. It was the first time I killed someone in a fit of rage and the only time I did so. I learned 2 things that day. First, that my parents never gave a damn about me or my sister, and second, that it would be the last time I killed someone out of rage. Why? Because from that day forward, the reason I killed people changed. No longer did I kill due to my short temper, I killed to instill fear. I wanted those around me to live in constant terror, wondering if they would be next on my hit list. I killed for fun. I was never going to be caught. Who would suspect a policeman of being a serial killer? Ever since the body started showing up strangled, butchered, sometimes even shot, the Digital Investigation Unit has been combing the dark web for any clue the killer might have left behind. Too bad for them. They didn't realize all the weapons I used came from my old man's shed. No deals, no digital footprints. It was a crazy life I led. By day, I was a cop protecting others. By night, I was a killer hurting them. It was the 9th of November, the day Simeon, the leader of the Digital Investigation Unit DU and the most respected member of the team, announced his resignation, citing personal issues. Those issues also prompted him to move all the way to the other side of Philadelphia. Naturally, questions arose about these so-called personal issues, but Simeon remained tight-lipped. The cops weren't stupid. They had already considered the possibility that Simeon might be the killer they were chasing and conducted a preliminary investigation. Luckily for Simeon, I had carefully orchestrated alibis for almost every single murder I had committed, enough to convincingly prove he wasn't the killer. Not that it matters, I'm still going to keep killing. Let those police buddies of mine feel the pressure. Let them scramble, trying to prove just how incompetent, brain-dead, and utterly useless they truly are. Simeon's successor, Benjamin, was a friend of mine. We had joined the force only a week apart and had formed a bond over the years of friendship that extended beyond the confines of work. I was proud of Benjamin, in a way, but I also pitied him. I wouldn't call him naive or lightheaded, but he believed in people far too much. Take me, for example. He's supposed to be the one hunting down the killer that the department has been after for years now. But who's going to stop the killer? Who's going to stop me? What a loser. He doesn't realize that while everyone else sees him as a man of great leadership and irresistible charisma, I know the truth. He's nothing more than a thick-headed, pathetic dumbass who might as well lick my goddamn boots. Simeon, Benjamin, and I were the last few people remaining at the meal. Both Benjamin's and my shifts were over, while the rest of the team either needed to head home to finish paperwork or were stuck on night duty. As Simeon went to the cashier to pay for the meal, Benjamin and I waited for him outside with cigarettes. After a few minutes of silence, Benjamin broke it with a conversation. I found something interesting the other day. Go on. You know that app we recently took down? The Rebels program he started? The one that literally shared a step-by-step guide on making live bombs? Oh, I remember that. Well, you know me, I've been interested in obscure apps ever since. I've started hunting down all sorts of weird ones, like those immoral or downright fake ones that spread misinformation. Like ghost hunting apps. Yeah, exactly. So, I wanted to ask you for a favor. Can you keep an eye out for obscure apps that are clearly scams or bait for kids? Let me know if you find any. Some of these apps are turning their utilities into paid content, making the scams look more legitimate. To make it seem like their nonsense is real by asking kids to pay for it, I said taking a drag from my cigarette. Exactly. I'm planning to start a campaign to take those apps down. Are you interested? I definitely am. All right, just send me the names when you find them. That was the last thing he said before heading off. Ghost apps? Seriously? Give me a break. I don't believe in that nonsense about spirits or phantoms. There's nothing after death, you just stop existing. All those ridiculous theories about ghosts in places like Edinburgh or the Tower of London? Pure urban legend nonsense. As I grabbed a taxi home, I decided for once to be a good citizen and contribute to society by helping Benjamin get rid of those idiotic apps. When the taxi dropped me off, I waited until it was out of sight before entering my house and locking the door. The best thing about my home was the soundproofing. The noises from the basement were almost impossible to hear. From the hum of the boilers to the occasional screams, everything was muffled, but I always had to stay careful. I opened the basement door and heard no screams. Perhaps he was already dead. I couldn't let that happen. I hadn't had my fun yet. I didn't want him to just drop dead. I wanted to be the one to kill him, or at least watch him die. Back in college, I was part of the drama club. I remember the day my acting skills first worked to my advantage, and I plan to use them again now. A few days ago, when I came to the school as a guest lecturer to teach kids about the dangers of trusting strangers, there was a boy named Jeremy, a smug little know-it-all. He was a student just yesterday. Now, he was a trophy ready to be put on display, a reminder for people to stop trusting the police. One, because they're pathetically incompetent, and two, because the killer is the cop. When I approached, he was leaning weakly against the wall, his wide, terrified eyes locking onto mine. Despite his condition, he still had enough strength to fear me, and enough strength to satisfy me. I slipped on my gloves and started throttling him. His little eyes widened with fear, pain, and despair. Maybe he'd forgotten that I was his abductor. Maybe seeing me in my police uniform, he thought I'd come to save him instead of strangle him. I don't know what he thought, and I don't care. I liked it. The boy thrashed violently, desperate to survive. At first, it took effort to keep my grip on his neck, but soon his struggles began to weaken. Eventually, there was no sign of life left in him. His body went limp, like a doll. That's when I stopped. I grinned. Another body added to my kill count, the youngest so far. Am I a monster? Yes. Am I proud of it? Absolutely. I stretched, letting my muscles relax as I stared at the boy's lifeless body. Then I stuffed his corpse into a golf bag, making sure to leave no trace of DNA behind. I planned to dump him in the river bag and all. I changed into workout clothes just in case anyone got suspicious of me carrying the bag. To complete the look, I brought along a tennis racket. If anyone saw me, they'd think I was heading to a late-night tennis session. Luckily, I didn't encounter anyone on my way to the lake. The area was deserted. At the water's edge, I pulled the boy's body from the bag. I'd been careful to remove any tape or rope marks from him. Then, with a final heave, I threw him into his watery grave. It was done. Time to go home. By the time I finished showering, it was 11 p.m. I usually went to bed at midnight, so I had an hour to kill. I turned on my computer and typed weird apps into the search bar, then hit enter. Scrolling through various sites like Reddit and YouTube, I came across apps that were weird but not exactly unethical. Still, I started downloading a few that hadn't been removed from the App Store. Most of them were misogynistic, to say the least. There was Girlfriend Manager, an app designed for making notes and stalking people, and Hook, which offered contacts for street prostitutes. As I kept scrolling, I came across a link titled Top 10 Weirdest Apps. Without hesitation, I clicked on it. While the website gave information to apps that I have already encountered, I stumbled on something that I never encountered or have thought of seeing. The Death app. This app is said to give information about recent deaths nearby the area. Traits of this app include giving information of the deceased, the location of their deaths, and where they are buried. An interesting gag, I thought. When I checked for that in the App Store, it was there. The app's logo, downloadable for free, was a simple white crucifix set against a pitch black background. In the main shop, its name was displayed in bold letters: Death app, created by a company ominously calling themselves Riverstyx. No other apps were associated with this developer, just this one. The app had been updated 3 days ago, with the changelog noting only bug fixes. Intrigued, I downloaded it to see what kind of nonsense it might offer. It consumed a hefty 3 GB of my phone's storage, not that I cared. To my surprise, the app installed successfully and appeared on my home screen. I tapped on the crucifix icon. The screen was instantly filled with an eerie illustration of a cemetery shrouded in darkness. In the foreground, the app's title loomed large: Death app. Moments later, the main interface loaded, revealing several options and filters. On the left-hand side, a menu offered categories such as by time of death, by place of death, and by cause of death. My curiosity got the better of me, and I selected the by cause of death filter. A series of icons appeared, each representing different causes: drowning, burning, falling, old age, disease, and murder. As soon as I activated the cause of death filter, the map on the screen filled with colorful squares, each marking the location of a death. The color of the square corresponded to the cause: red for murder, blue for illness, yellow for traffic accidents, and so on. Then I saw it and almost dropped my phone. My house was covered in red squares. Murder. It wasn't a glitch either. The rest of the map showed different patterns: hospitals covered in blue squares for illness, roads dotted with yellow for traffic accidents. Every death had a place in a story. I zoomed in on my house. At least 9 red squares clustered around it. My stomach churned as I stared at the screen. Finally, I turned off the app and headed down to the basement. There, on the wall where I kept my tally, the truth was written in black and white. There were 8 in the tally minus 8 deaths recorded. And there should have been one more I hadn't yet accounted for: Jeremy. The app knew exactly how many people had died in my house. Exactly how many I had killed. What the hell did know? Despite feeling unsettled, I headed to my bedroom, fatigue finally catching up to me. I turned off my phone and lay down on my bed, preparing for tomorrow. But as I tried to fall asleep, I realized I had been lying there, wide awake. Was it because I had killed a child? No. Was it because I had killed someone? Still no. It was the app. The app knew how many people had died in my house. It knew what I did. But how? Was it just a coincidence? A glitch? A bug? I couldn't shake the thought. And then, absurdly, my mind went to conspiracy theories, the kind I would usually dismiss as nonsense. Could this app have been made by the Illuminati or some shadowy organization to monitor people and control the population? I don't know how long I obsessed over these thoughts, but when I opened my eyes, it was morning. Maybe my mind wasn't restless enough to keep me awake after all. I started my day with a small breakfast and then got to work cleaning the basement. I had resolved to be more cautious, leaving no trace of struggle or blood. As I opened the door to the basement, The smell hit me. The bodies I had hidden were starting to reek of rotting flesh. The stench was overwhelming, strong enough to reach the top of the stairs. I grabbed 3 or 4 candles from my shed, the ones I'd kept for emergencies, and lit them to mask the smell. Just as I was setting them up, a notification popped up on my phone. There were 2 alerts. One was from Benjamin saying the chief wanted all units to help find Jeremy. The other was from the Death app. The app has been successfully updated. For some reason, curiosity got the better of me. What kind of update was it? Bug fixes? A UI change? I couldn't help myself and open the app. A notification about the update appeared immediately. Update 2.0. New features. Timeline track where the bodies are after death. Minor bug fixes. The developers had even included a step-by-step guide on how to use the new feature. I scrolled through the app, navigating to the map. My eyes caught something odd, a single marker at a cemetery. It was marked old age despite this app supposedly only showing recent deaths. How recent was recent exactly? When I pressed the square, I saw something that made my entire body freeze with fear. It was literally displaying the timeline of where the corpse had been before its current location. You know how Google Maps tracks where you've been and if you enable location sharing? Yeah, like that. When the tutorial for using this new feature ended, I noticed a red square on the lake, the exact place where I had dumped the body. Hesitant, I pressed the square to check the location of the corpse, and the thing I feared most appeared right in front of me. It showed that the corpse had come from my house, that it had died at my house, that it was murdered at my house. While some might think this is just a sick joke meant to make people look like killers, any rational person, especially the police, would immediately sense that something was off, even if they didn't believe a single thing about the app. The bus intercom announced my arrival at the station. I calmed my thoughts and stepped off the bus. Multiple colleagues were arriving in various ways, taxis, cars, and even some from the same bus I had taken. I just hoped none of them noticed me nervously fiddling with the app. At least 9 people, including me, headed into the forest where I had dumped the body. Believing in any possibility to shift suspicion away from myself, this was my chance to distance myself from the crime. By luring them to the lake and pretending it was my first time at the location, I could play the role of a hardworking policeman who had stumbled upon the body for the victim's family, not the killer. I just needed to waste enough time to make my discovery look like a coincidence. As we trekked into the forest, we decided to split up into smaller groups to cover multiple areas. This was the moment I knew luck was on my side. I was assigned to search alone near the location where I had hidden the body. With enough time to ensure there was no evidence left behind, I would report the body on my terms. When I reached the lake, I scanned the area for any signs of being caught, traces of my previous visit, or incriminating evidence. Then, I checked under the lake to confirm the body was still there. It was. The bag containing the corpse remained submerged. But now, a new question gnawed at my mind. How did the app know I killed the boy at my house and dumped him in the lake? As these thoughts haunted me, I saw Benjamin approach the lake from a different angle. That was when he dropped the bombshell. Hey buddy, are you familiar with this strange app? I downloaded it today after seeing it online. Something tells me there's a corpse in this lake. I think the app's called Death, wondering if it's some kind of scam or not. He couldn't be serious. He just casually revealed he'd downloaded the app and was one step closer to finding the body. If he discovered it, he would know the app wasn't a hoax. Worse, the new update showing the death locations of murder victims and the path their bodies had traveled would expose me as the boy's killer. He knew where I lived. The body came from my house. Luckily, I had anticipated this and already devised a solution. A way to stop him from finding the body. Real? I checked the lake and there's nothing here. Maybe the app's just another hoax, I said, feigning nonchalance. Benjamin seemed to believe my lie. Why wouldn't he? He didn't know I was a killer. To him, I was just another cop, here to search for a corpse, not to hide one. Before he could respond, I sealed the deal by transmitting a message to the rest of the team. Lake is secure. No sign of the body. Benjamin looked confused. Soon, though, his confusion began to morph into suspicion. He was starting to sense I was hiding something, which of course I was. I quickly scanned the area for a distraction and spotted a small warehouse in the middle of the forest. Have you checked there? I asked. No? Without a word, we both knew we had to investigate. I led the way, quickening my pace. Luckily, Benjamin wasn't keeping up. As I neared the warehouse, I mentally checked my gear: a police jacket covering my uniform, black pants, gloves to conceal my fingerprints, and a police hat. Using my gun was out of the question; it would alert everyone. So I opted for a quieter method, something I had prepared in case I was ever disarmed. I entered the warehouse ahead of Benjamin, positioning myself against the wall beside the entrance. The moment he stepped inside, I sprang into action, covering his mouth. Even as a cop, an ambush like this was unexpected and fatal. Cops die in the line of duty all the time, whether by direct attack or unseen threats. But for Benjamin, his killer being me was likely the last thing he expected. I made sure to target areas where the wounds would be most lethal. Despite being twice my size, he collapsed without much resistance. A few more stabs, just a few more, before someone came in. But then I froze. My hand began to shake, not from fear or remorse, but from a sudden cramp. I dropped the knife and stared at Benjamin's body. He had stopped breathing. When I checked for a pulse, there was nothing. This was the first time I had killed a fellow cop. I dragged Benjamin's corpse to the back of the house, his face pressed against the floor, as blood flowed from his back. I couldn't let the blood spill onto the warehouse. After placing him in a not-so-discreet yet sufficiently hidden location, I took out his phone, unlocked it with his fingerprints, and saw it the death app. I immediately deleted the app from Benjamin's phone and crushed it for good measure before sending a DM to the rest of the group. Nothing in the surrounding area. I will return home until further notice. I ditched Benjamin's phone and body and walked away. As I confirmed there was no evidence linking me to the murder, I smirked. This was an achievement. I had killed a cop. Who was going to stop me now? I feigned ignorance, ready to act shocked once Benjamin's body was found. Leaving the scene of the crime, I hoped nothing would go wrong. That's when my phone buzzed with a notification. Was it an email? A response to my DM in the police chat room? No, it wasn't either of those, though I hoped it was. It was a notification from the app. And it wasn't about an update. Alert, someone just died near your area. Cause murder. The accuracy of the notification was unsettling. This wasn't a hoax app or a coincidence. Someone had died murdered. I knew that for a fact because I was the killer. The app didn't know who the killer was, but it knew Benjamin had been murdered. My blood ran hot and cold at the same time. This goddamned app knew every single death in the area. It knew exactly when, where, and how people died. A red square marking the forest showed more details. The murder had occurred just minutes ago. It felt as if the app was mocking me, reminding me that I couldn't escape justice, that someone or something was always watching. I wondered who they were. Who were the app's creators? I immediately searched through the credits or acknowledgement section of the app, desperate to find a name. There it was, River Styx. Who were these people? The name alone sounded ominous, as if they knew everything I had done and could soon end my spree. I couldn't let that happen. The app knew Benjamin had been murdered, even though the police, my so-called allies, had no idea it was me. As I waited for the bus, I decided to search the name on Google. I started without adding the word company and found results about Greek mythology. According to myth, the River Styx was the boundary between the land of the living and the dead. When I added company at the end of the name, I finally found something, a website, and as soon as I opened it, I was greeted by their welcoming message and the confirmation that they were the creators of the Death App. The Death App was created by the Death App. Strange thing was that there was no other information besides the fact that they made the app. No purpose, no referral. I then went back to Google and visited Google Maps, hoping to find an HQ nearby that I could visit for my other purpose. I did manage to find the address of the HQ. The nearest police station to the River Styx was 10 minutes away, which meant I had just enough time. I returned home and started packing weapons into the back of my car, the one I usually use for grocery runs. Instead of heading to the shops for food, I was heading to the company for blood. One day in December of 2015, I knew I had to do something to delete this app, even if it meant using force. As the morning commute filled the streets of Philadelphia, the death app began to ring more violently, as multiple deaths had been announced while I was passing by a hospital, and all of the patients were seen to be dead. One after another, the wall of the hospital began to shake. This goddamn app. I passed by the exact location of the company building while finding a place to park my car. It was a one-story building, the size of a basketball court. The word Styx was written on the door. I was at the right place. I entered the parking garage and took the handgun and a small SMG from the trunk, hid them discreetly, and headed in for the deal. The door was open and multiple people looked at me. A policeman entered the building, confused, probably thinking I was here for someone's arrest. He never expected I came to kill them all. I opened fire on the workers. One by one, those who were on computers, doing coding, and those coming out after a meeting. I started spraying the gun in every direction, ensuring everyone died. The first round of bullets managed to kill 3 employees. The survivors looked at me in confusion, but I didn't care. I continued the massacre, firing at everyone. All hell broke loose. Some employees ran out while others hid, but I continued the killing. That was until someone from behind me kicked me into the walls. Not only did it make me lose my balance, but whoever kicked me was incredibly powerful. The impact of the kick created a hole in the wall, and I lay there, numb. I'm a policeman with decent physical ability, but someone just kicked me so hard, I was literally thrown into the wall. So that was fun. And that was before I really got down. And I think just as I was trying to regain my senses, I felt something cover my hand. A sound I'd heard too many times before. Handcuffs. One of the employees, I don't know who, literally handcuffed me and tied me to the table legs. When I looked at the man, trying to yell at him, I stopped. You know, he had a face that didn't look human at all, something that seemed like it just crawled out of the bowels of hell. It didn't even feel like I was seeing a human, yet the other people around me seemed completely laid back, as if this was no problem, while they were literally surrounding what I could only describe as a demon. That's when I saw the figure's clothes, a robe with the word Styx on it. Why do you guys? The figure took off his robe, and that's when I felt more dread. This face, this figure, despite looking non-human, at least had human facial features that made me recognize him instantly. Simeon stared at me with a cold glare and gestured for all his workers to leave the mess. It was just me, his old friend, and him. Who are you? I am Simeon, the figure said. Or at least, what you think I am. What the hell was this guy talking about? The music saves my life, then what are you then? That was my next question. I looked at Simeon. What did this asshole just say? Did he just say, You look confused, puzzled by what I said, Simeon continued. But it's exactly what you think, or maybe the opposite of what you think. I am not talking about an alias or a nickname. I'm telling you exactly who I am, who we are. As soon as I heard we, the employees I shot, who had been lying on the floor while I was numb, stood up, unscathed. It was as if the bullets didn't even hit them. But I swear I shot each one in the head. You know what I hate the most, buddy? Simeon went to my eye level and said, It's when I have to reap the souls of people who die without any wrongdoing to their name. People, kids you killed, are prime examples. Every day I reap the soul of a child ruins my entire fucking day. Simeon grabbed my throat and forced me to stand up. I managed to spit out a word to prove him wrong. How long have you been reaping souls, you sick freak? Since the beginning of time. Then you must have killed millions. I haven't killed millions, and you dare lecture me? Simeon started to laugh. Right. What's the difference between killing for the greater good and killing for laughter, old friend? Even a damn baby knows that the result justifies the means. I kill for the law, and you kill for yourself. You told me when we were cops that the motive of a killer makes them more despicable than others. Simeon grabbed me and placed me closer to him, his eyes glowing red. A human cannot play something that makes the natural order natural. You killers are better off gone from our job and gone from this society, this human society you try to ruin. Ruining this society ruins the natural order. You are sickening to think that you are more noble than I am. And then the end of this story is, that was when I heard the sirens outside and Simeon smiled. Will I drag your soul down to the bowels of hell? I will be very satisfied.